The Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians, located here in Palm Springs, California, has an oral history dating back to the last ice age, 10,000 years, documented in our bird songs and our migration back to this area. We have grown into one of the wealthiest tribes in the United States by integrating, the wants and needs of the outside community to what we will do to sustain ourselves going into the future. This central area of Palm Springs was all the activity was centered around Seki, which is in Cahuilla the sound of boiling water. That is the springs that Palm Springs is named after. It is our winter home for the Cahuilla clan. We came around there during the winter time when it was a little bit more temperate, and we were able to farm around that area because of the spring-fed year-round river, but we also were able to utilize the bathing waters and heal all of our illnesses. The first point of contact for the Cahuilla people actually happened up in the mountain Cahuillas at the Cahuilla Reservation. Juan de Anza was coming across looking for a trade route from Sonora Desert to Monterey, California, where they had an encampment. When they met with the Cahuilla, they actually instantly established trade, because that was our custom, to trade with those people coming through our property, but also trade with other cultures. When the gold rush happened up in Northern California on Sutter's Mill, almost instantly, that stopped being a mill, stopped producing lumber, and all the other businesses around there started to change. So people weren't raising cattle, weren't raising food, weren't raising the things that are necessary to sustain that type of economic activity. Southern California became the source for about 95% of all the beef consumed up in Northern California. And what happened is this became a very rich area, supplying the supplies and the meat for sustaining the California gold rush. California as a whole, the economic activity increased, and for the Cahuillas themselves, after we lost the year-round spring-fed river, we actually made that transition into helping others by helping militarily and helping protect the economic activity in Southern California. So in 1850, California was basically admitted into the Union as the 31st state. It recognized the Mexican land grant land rights. It also recognized the Indian land rights for a period of time. What happened next was that the California, as well as the United States government, sat down, started to negotiate treaties with the tribes. The treaty rights that we agreed to in 1852, ours Treaty of Temecula, basically honored our land rights, established our territories, and gave the solemn oath of the U.S. government that our land rights would be protected and respected. The treaties themselves were never ratified, and with that, our land rights were never recognized. All up and down California, some 9 million acres worth of treaty right property was put in jeopardy. And only because we had the military establishment on either side of our reservation were we able to hold our property until the railroad came through this area in 1878. It established a ownership system for compensation to build the railroad. They were given the odd-numbered sections 10 miles either side of the railroad tracks. Those even-numbered sections that were left over were later established as the Agua Caliente Reservation, as well as some other checkerboarded reservations along Interstate 10 and the railroad path. And that's where, between 1850 and 1878, where we had to basically hold our property by our own initiative. About 1863, when there was a smallpox epidemic, wiped out a large number of Cahuilla territories. What began to happen is that the smallpox not only affected Cahuillas, it also affected urban areas. And those with enough resources, basically wealth, sought to try to figure out how to deal with some of the urban ills. Smallpox was one, but there was also tuberculosis and other ailments that affected people's breathing. And it was thought at that time that if you got into a dry desert climate, that it would actually help relieve your symptoms. Here in Palm Springs, we had that year-round. We also had the medicinal healing waters of Seki, our mineral springs here in Palm Springs. People began to come out here to the desert, and they wanted to have a place to stay. We recruited other people from the Bowman and Banning Pass area to come out here and establish little hotels around our area, and we began to lease them land and let them use our mineral waters to try to cure that process and also help the people with tuberculosis breathe better. And that's where Palm Springs originally was a health resort it was more like a sanatorium where people came to, relieve themselves of their ills. But it really began a whole process of us in about the 1880s, 1890s. We began leasing our property, and that became a really source of wealth for us. It became important for us to have the mentality that we wanted to understand what your needs and wants were, and then we would find a way to fulfill your needs and your wants, and that would be integrated into our method of perpetuating ourselves into the future, either through labor for your Mexican land ranchero, or through military assistance to protect those assets that you had created on that property, or to help you with the urban ills that were affecting the non-Indian populations in Los Angeles, San Bernardino. And we integrated that into our method of building an economic system. We've grown from the 50 or so members we had at the turn of the century, 1900s. We have about 450 members at this time, and we continue to grow. We continue to respect and honor our culture, but we also continue to integrate into the outside community on an economic basis. And one of the things that we have to do is balance the economic activity and the economic relations and the social and political relations, as well as preserving our culture and preserving our unique view of the world.